Today's talk principally focuses on the fact that Bob Lutz has an ongoing argument with Elon Musk about the future viability of Tesla. The key issue that we're focusing on today is he suggested that the EV credits are an important part of the profitability of Tesla that will start to disappear, and this is going to negatively impact the stock. So that's our principal focus today. We also take a look at some things going on with the latest announcements. The stock price is down, as well as what's going on in the case of the SEC versus Tesla and what some of the byproducts of this might be. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. As you can see, this is one of my favorite places to shoot. That's the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. We're in a place called National Harbor, and just wanted to give you a flavor for the outdoor environment. We have kind of going wild in the background there, as you can see, and if there's time at the end, we may give you more of a review, particularly if there's interest. Today's talk is, also wanted to do some house cleaning to note. Wanted to thank all of our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. Your subscribing and supporting Patreon allows us to continue to improve every aspect of how the channel executes. And we'd like to be able to provide you and everyone else with better information all the time and enable you to both invest and own the vehicle efficiently. So there was a question that's been sitting out there for the last, let's say, week or so, and this is, we're in the end of the third week of March. And the question was, as Tesla is rolling out brand new vehicles, which mean perhaps more revenue, and other good things are happening, why is it that the stock price is actually falling? And one of the things that was sort of grating on me was the fact that if you go back to the earnings that Tesla announced in the November timeframe, they provided numbers, and one of the numbers they provided was that there was a $300 million payment they'd received from what are called tax credits. So basically what happens is that in certain places, particularly like California, but I still think it's the case in the United States, manufacturers that are selling high polluting vehicles like SUVs have an interesting choice, and that is if they don't have electric vehicles to offset their sales of high polluting vehicles, they then have to, in essence, buy those tax credits from another company that does have those vehicles. So in this case, Tesla has been able to sell the right to pollute to other manufacturers that need to sell SUVs or need to sell them and are making money from them. So Bob Lutz's argument was that, yes, Tesla has been benefiting from those dollars, but the question that pops up is, what happens when a number of these companies, call it Daimler or BMW or GM for that matter, start producing their own electric vehicles? Now, because they already have those electric vehicles, they actually don't need the tax to purchase the tax credit from someone like Tesla, and as a result, one of Tesla's sort of revenue and earnings underpinnings starts to disappear, and then completely disappears as all the manufacturers introduce their electric products. So those electric vehicles may or may not sell very well, but because those companies are selling high polluting ICE vehicles, they can actually benefit from the fact that they don't have to pay anyone for tax credit anymore. It was, I tried to sort of figure out, well, if you look at Tesla's numbers, what happened to this sale of EV credits relative to the most recent earnings? And from what we could see, there wasn't a lot of evidence of those EV credits happening at that definitely not at $300 million, but the number is obviously significantly lower than that because it didn't seem to hit the earnings at all. So exactly what Bob Lutz argued is kind of occurring, which I believe is unfortunate for Tesla, because as we all know, one of Tesla's strategies has been to increase the number of manufacturers that are actually building electric vehicles. And Tesla actually has open patents and has been consulting with these firms to aid in the growth of their EV production. So it looks like there's like a tipping point that's starting to happen where there's enough sales happening by the other companies of EVs to not necessarily threaten Tesla because they have an as good or better product, but the threat to Tesla could be the fact that those companies are selling EVs with the help of Tesla and therefore reducing Tesla's earnings because they can't sell those same companies EV credits anymore because those companies are producing cars. So this is a very interesting development, I think, because Elon went from 5 weeks ago, he announced that Tesla would be profitable, which it was, I guess, in the January earnings announcement. And he also announced that going forward over the next couple of quarters, he did not see the company being profitable. So I think this is actually kind of big news that's worth observing. And I also think that in our analysis, what usually happens with the stock market is the analyst reports that we'll be getting access to in the next week or two would really tell us more about what the very, very sharp analysts think about the future of Tesla's company and shares. And what we're seeing is that right now is we're not seeing a whole bunch of information suggesting that Tesla is going to be doing some great things. And so this kind of brings up the question mark of, well, why is that the case? And then as you'll notice, Elon, seeing how these numbers are working out, one, articulated that they would not be making money. He also went so far as to say that not only would they not be making money, but he expected losses. So another question that's lurking there is, what did Elon see before he announced the company would be profitable going forward that he's now seeing that caused him to change his mind and say he doesn't see it being profitable over the next couple of quarters? And the fact that the stock hasn't bounced back suggests to me that, analytical elements like what I just described are starting to play into what we might see going forward from Tesla. So I really think that what this suggests then is that, sacred cows, meaning activities of the company that have not been consistent with profitability and good fundamentals will really start to play. And I think that Elon's attempt to shut down all the expensive showroom facilities was a smart move to consider as a thing to do, but it was unwise to sort of execute that plan via Twitter, because the locations, many of those store Tesla facilities is in some of the most pricey malls in the United States and possibly the world. So one way to do it is to say, I'm going to shut them down immediately and get rid of the employees inside. Another way to do it is to simply approach those malls quietly, find out what the rules are for each of those leases, and see if you can't sublet to tenants that might move in even at a discount rate. So now you can pull out, and it doesn't create the potential disaster that came from the rapid announcement and then all of a sudden the retrenchment based on realizing that the nature of those leases would mean you either pay those rents or you get sued, and between legal fees and other headaches, you end up having to de facto pay those rents anyway, and now those individuals or companies can rent to somebody else while Tesla is still paying the rent on those facilities. So bottom line is that I just think that there's going to be a lot better execution in terms of operationally thinking through a process and executing well. The next thing I wanted to cover today is the fact that I had a chance to read yesterday some of the material related to the court case that's between the SEC and Elon Musk regarding his tweets. As you know, Elon did some tweets last year. He had a settlement with the SEC, and we're currently at the stage where the SEC is holding Elon and Tesla in contempt of court, because both the inside attorney as well as the several board members were supposed to review Elon's tweets before he shipped them out. What ended up happening, as you may recall, is as soon as Elon issued the latest sort of incendiary tweet regarding the amount of production for this year by Tesla, the chief counsel who had been there for 60 days quit. And the reason that he quit, as we discussed, is the fact that he's an expert on the SEC and its actions. He knew that Elon and Tesla were in breach, and so he left immediately as a way to prevent him from being held criminally liable potentially for tweets that he's supposed to screen before they're put out. What's mind-blowing to me is that in this circumstance, if you look at what's in the briefing via Electrek, is where I got my information, Tesla/Elon Musk admits that, number one, the tweets that he did had not been vetted per the agreement with the SEC. So there's an emphatic no, those tweets were not properly reviewed. The second thing that comes up is that not only were those tweets not properly vetted, but you also have the problem of the response that Tesla's lawyers is providing right now. Is they're saying that there is the reason why Tesla should not be held in contempt is because it's a violation of Elon Musk's First Amendment rights, where he's allowed to make statements just as a public citizen, and that he should not be held liable for those. I'd have to say I like the argument. I'd say it makes sense. I think this is weighing on the stock actually, because the question that pops up is, how do you sign with the SEC an agreement indicating that all tweets would be vetted, and then you go opposite direction on those on the agreement you did? And so this is the concern I have. So I wanted to, had a break there because we had a potential ticketing situation, because the guys here are very ticket conscious and I only have a few minutes of show left before I get busted. So basically, we're in a circumstance right now where the market tends not to like what I call the unknown. So if Elon is admitting that he breached the agreement and his lawyers have presented this case that may have to be litigated or whatever's going to happen with it, what that's called is uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen. Will Elon be able to stay? How big will the fine be to the company where cash is actually pretty important? Will he be removed as CEO? Will he be completely removed from operating with public companies? All these are questions that are unknown. And as we've shared previously, the market tends to discount the stock price of a company if there are about to be material changes that happen, because the unknown, it's hard to budget for that in terms of what might happen, etc. So I think that this whole circumstance is unfortunate. I'm hoping that there's a possibility that there may be another round of settlements before he totally gets blown out. But I do believe that that response is actually bad news. The last thing that I wanted to focus on today is something I want to call the Toyota phenomenon. Was to figure out a way to meet the quality goals and implementations that come from Toyota, but by doing it in an automated fashion such that it'd be a lot less costly over time than if you're using people. I think it's a good goal. I think it makes sense. What I keep wondering about is, for example, right now, there's a block of the performance and dual motor Model 3s that are still being produced in the tent in Fremont. And the question that comes up is, wait a second, how are you going to get quality at the level of Toyota if you're operating in a tent, and in that tent you're not offering permanent structures that allows you to do repeated activities that are same both by robots and people? And so you could potentially have relatively minor misses in efficiency from a person, and that slight miss results in a problem, which is, you now have a bad situation where you don't know if each of those cars is actually the same car being produced because you have variability in the lines. So based on what I've read about and learned about with Toyota, they don't play that game. There's a way in which they set up the shop floor as well as set up suppliers so that there's a harmonious system that efficiently delivers quality on a constant basis. The reason why I'm emphasizing the Toyota conversation relative to Tesla is that Toyota is winning on so many fronts. They produce a very high quality product. If you look at, take time and pick any Toyota vehicle, let's say 3, 5, 10 years out, and you'll notice that the average price of those vehicles is actually 20 to 40% higher than competitors. And so why that is quite simple, is that there's a quality element that's been built into those vehicles that Tesla has not been able to achieve. And because of that quality, there's a whole bunch of benefits. You have lower costs when it comes to repair. Don't fear owning your vehicle long term because they know that vehicle is going to be fine in terms of the amount of work it needs to have done on it. And as we've covered in an earlier show, Toyota has even gotten into a comical zone of efficiency and quality, and that is in greater New York. For the Toyota Camry, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about 5 years ago where owners of Toyota Camrys were waking up in the morning and going and not owner. I was reading one of the comments being made to see if it's something I want to add to the end here, but what's actually going on is that there was these cars where owners were waking up in the morning and the rear doors of their Camrys were gone. I really recommend you guys check it out. It's a great story. But when they researched it, what they found out was that the car may be worth only $2,000 or $3,000, but the rear doors were worth $4,000. And the reason for that was that the Toyota vehicles were so well built that when insurance companies needed to buy parts from those vehicles, those parts were no place to be found because the cars were still on the road and performing for customers in that 200,000 to 300,000 mile range, and it was a no-brainer, no big deal. So this is what Toyota quality is about, and they have a beautiful system of how they take care of suppliers, how they take care of the manufacturing floor and customers. Toyota, may I remind you, refuses to go above 25% automation in order to maintain that quality standard. And in the case of Tesla / Elon Musk is hunting for the land of 100% automation or a drednaught factory. And so the question mark that pops up is that what if Tesla gets to the drednaught factory and at the same time is producing vehicles that customers are nervous to own because they know they're going to break down? So it's a very interesting sort of what's going on with the company and where is it going. I definitely think it's worth considering because I've been serving owners, and at this point I'm only at about 40 or 50 owners of cars already that are considering whether they go to Model 3 or Model X or S in the future. And sort of the number one thing that I've heard is that a lot of these folks are saying, hey, because of like the handles and the repair of those and other issues, many owners are trying to get rid of their Teslas before they go out of warranty. And the goal being to avoid getting hit with very large repair bills out of warranty, etc. Yeah, thanks for that, Josh, regarding modern automation needs to be refined. You know, I definitely think it's the case, but I do think that if there's a company that's blowing away all the metrics like Toyota when it comes to quality, I think it might be a good idea to consider replicating them rather than trying to beat them at their own game, particularly if they've been winning that game for the last 20 or so, or 20 plus years. You know, I'd have to also say that it's kind of interesting because one of the ways in which Tesla brings sort of Japanese manufacturing into their process is the fact that they've retained Panasonic to do the batteries in the United States. And where the batteries are produced is completely controlled by Panasonic. So I think to some extent, some of those Deming or Toyota-based and Japanese-based processes for production are actually being baked into the production of Tesla, at least at the battery, maybe battery pack level, and elsewhere in the vehicle, we're not doing that. But I also wanted to note that you also notice that one of the areas that we have not seen any major blow-ups or issues has been exactly, that area, which is the battery stuff has been really solid, and Panasonic does not talk about a drednaught facility when it comes to that. They just have solid professionals that represent Japanese manufacturing well. And Elon/Tesla has said that the reason they have them there is they can't match their quality in essence. So I think this is a really fascinating sort of round of events, et cetera, that's worth covering, worth noting. And I'm hopeful that Elon backs off the drednaught goals and really targets, can we produce a quality vehicle that doesn't have to be repaired constantly, and therefore customers can be comfortable in their ownership. So as we're closing out today, would love to have any questions that you guys might have that you feel like I might want to answer. I also wanted to note for our Patreon supporters, we've got the $1 and $5 level. We're actually introducing a new $25 level of support, which includes a Tesla jacket, which I'll be showing in one of our next shows, as well as some other goodies that are coming forward based on our ability to acquire items with Tesla logos on them that you guys might find useful. I also wanted to note that I usually involve folks at the end of our show in our health discussion or health tips. Just a reminder, try not to eat within 2 hours of going to bed. I also wanted to encourage you to do 20 leg lifts a day on each leg using a 5-pound weight. I ran into a doctor yesterday and we had a conversation about some of the health tips we've been reviewing. He was formerly the head of the Georgetown Med Center, and one of the things he pointed out was those 20 leg lifts will not only strengthen your leg muscles / the area around your knees, but what's beneficial is that when you do those exercises, having that strength there, if in fact there's an operation, allows you to